Gentlemen, no lady. Yeah, hearty welcome to today's study circle meet. We have chosen a topic: customs, critical issues and recent rulings in customs practice and procedures. We have invited eminent speaker on this subject, CR Raghavendra. Is our fellow member of our institute and practicing advocate. May I request our chairman to welcome him with a floral bouquet. Please welcome sir. Thank you, chairman. Friends, it is my pleasure to introduce CR Raghavendra to this gathering. CR Raghavendra is a practicing advocate in Bangalore, specialized in indirect taxes, company law and FEMA. He is also practicing in the areas of GST, Central Excise Service Tax, Customs, Foreign Trade Policy and Foreign Exchange Management Act. As a specialist in the field of indirect taxation, he appears frequently before appellate authorities, tribunals and High Court. He has addressed several seminars at various places including ICAI, FKCCI and NASEN and CAG. He has published various papers in journals of Southern India Regional Council of ICAI. He regularly contributes updates on indirect taxes at Karnataka State Chartered Accountants Association Journal. He has co-authored a book on GST and indirect tax principles, Demystified, published by CCH India, and is involved in preparation of e-learning material on service tax and technical guide to SENVAT credit for ICAI. With this brief introduction, I present CR Raghavendra before you. Please join me to welcome him. What do you like?
I think being a session in customs, I think it's very interesting to discuss some of the recent. What I have done is, because the customs as it is, many are either not interested or not aware of the law as it is, but to make it interesting, what I have done is I have chosen some of the topics which are relevant across the customs law, whether it is relating to the basic levy as well as classification and valuation, and also some of the rulings. Because the gathering itself is small, I would request you all to make it an interactive session so that we can discuss each one of the topics in detail and take it forward. Okay, and let me start with the introduction of this. In fact, just to highlight how the customs compares with the other taxes in terms of the government revenue. And it is interesting to note the customs has a very interesting role. It is not only for revenue generation. See, normally what do you tax? What is the purpose of taxation? Whether it is income tax or GST, is revenue for the government, whether it's central or state. Customs has one more role other than being a revenue to the government. It has a very significant role in terms of import restriction and export incentive. You have, along with the customs, there is, apart from anti-dumping duty and safeguard duty, customs itself is a trade barrier. We will discuss in future slides, like how the trade wars between various countries are being fought only as considering the customs tariff barriers. And it is not only a revenue generation method, it is also a trade barrier for each of the countries. And though there is a World Customs Council, which is the parent organization for the customs levies across India, and the customs procedure, valuation method, and also what are all the terms and classification. Largely, the world body cannot legislate or impose anything. It is, each country has to frame its own legislation and has to have its own legislative backup. And being a democratic country, in India we have a parliament which has enacted the laws, and we will start. And as far as the revenue is concerned, if you just see, customs interestingly started gaining the revenue from 1,12,000 to it has got to 1,30,000 crores. Now they have projected 1,55 crores. This is due to the fact that India has been increasing the customs tariff recently, last 2 years. And as I have watched from the year 2000, when the rates were around 30%, 35%, in 99-2000, the peak rate of customs imports were around 30-35%. And each year they started reducing, and they arrived at a peak rate of 10%. They reached about in 2005-06. From 2005-06, there has been no increase in the tariff across board. However, since last 1 or 2 years, from the year 2015-16 onwards, there has been a slight increase in the customs tariff across the board. And this, in fact, I will tell you the background also. When the government of India launched a Make in India scheme, the customs duty was the major trade barrier which Indian government used it. What they started, wherever they wanted to localize certain manufacturing products, they increased the custom duties for those specific products. That's how it started. But unfortunately, or for some reason, it has been spreading to across the boards. That kind of protectionism is not required or not warranted, simply because the moment you start increasing the custom duty, there will be other trade wars which I will also deal shortly. And also it leads to an allegation of protectionism. The moment you have protectionism, the flight of capital will be there. There are other colloquial, I think, other related problems. We will have to live with that. Therefore, just by increasing the customs tariff, you will not be able to protect the local industry. Lot of economic factors have to be considered. To that extent, it would have been better for the government to moderate the customs increase. But for some reason, even in July 2019 budget, there have been number of increase in customs tariff, as well as abolition of the exemptions. They have not only increased the tariff, they have removed the number of exemptions also in customs. And interestingly, last budget, there was a clear-cut policy announcement that this customs barrier is mainly for encouraging the Make in India. But this time there is no such statement in the budget speech. However, there has been an increase in the tariff.
Sir, this like
Yes.
GST is excluding state GST.
Yes. State GST respectively goes to the state budget of each state, SGST of each state. Therefore, overall you can assume that the total amount of GST, only CGST, equal amount would have got distributed among all the states. However, please remember, in this IGST component is there, no? That will get redistributed to all the states. And that is as per the IGST Act. IGST Act, there is a specific provision which says that once when the central government collects this IGST, they will redistribute depending on the place of supply. Where the place of supply is determined on that basis, therefore you have to remember that the from the place or state which is supplying is not the recipient state. The place of supply of that particular service or goods is the relevant state which will get the revenue. Therefore, that SGST component will not be reflected in the union budget. This is
Though it's slightly outside the thing. The IGST is only 50, less than 10% of the CGST.
you see what
The
they
state is so less.
no. What they have done is they have taken the net as they have to distribute. As I was telling you, what is accounted, estimated is only the remaining portion of IGST which remains with the union. They cannot account the IGST component of each state. For example, there is a service provided from Karnataka to Delhi. It's an IGST. Amount goes to central government first. However, if the place of supply is Karnataka, that portion of revenue will be given to Karnataka. Therefore, it will not, whatever the portion of IGST which the government is budgeting is the residual one. And also, that's why there will be a dispute. This dispute was there from the beginning in 2017, where each state wanted more share of the IGST component. There will always be dispute. They will say wherever certain exports, in case of intermediary, I am not able to determine where the place of supply. If that particular revenue is sitting in central government, each state will claim. I think that will be, we don't have to be worried about that because it's a dispute between the central government and the state government. They will resolve. And there are provisions in the IGST Act to take care of this. There is a provision specifically which says how it should be distributed in case of dispute between central and state government.
But interstate trade is only 1/10 of within the intrastate trade.
No. In fact, let's not go as per the budgetary figures. That is much more substantial and higher. What is remaining here is the amount which comes to the union government.
It's also like that only. So CGST, equal amount has gone to SGST. So 50,000 crores are coming to central government as 50% of the total GST of each state. And whereas 6 lakh crores is coming from same intrastate transactions, which means only 10% are interstate.
No, in my estimate, please remember IGST is always double the CGST.
But you said it's
9% plus 9%. You charge for CGST, SGST. In case of LGST, it is straight away 18%. It will go to the respective state as a compensation from union government will collect and give it to the respective states where there is a place of supply. That mechanism is there contained in IGST Act. When you give 18%, that entire 18% goes to a particular state where the service has a place of supply. Therefore, that is not accounted in union. Therefore, that mechanism, I think, that is...
CG is also 9%.
No, it is a regular 9%, central government.
So that is 9%, this is also 9%.
Yes.
Whereas this is only, say, less than 1/10 of the
No,
IGST contribution is about 10% of CGST contribution.
Budgetary figure says that, but let's not take more time.
Sorry.
Let's get on with the customs. I know it's I may have to discuss the IGST provisions more now. Okay. There are provisions to address this. In fact, GST Council is empowered to address this now. Now, I'll start with a little bit of background as far as the customs is concerned. As you are aware, it originated from the word custom in English. It's a customary thing to give whenever, I think this is how the Britishers came to India and they gave lot of gifts to the existing kings and they got a place for business. They started as a traders, they came and gave. Whenever, that was a customary thing, whenever you visit a foreign emperor or a king, you have to, based on the customs, you have to give so much as a gift so that you will be permitted to do the trading. And also, whatever the goods you have brought from foreign country can be sold. Now this has become a organized way. During the medieval period, Europe being an advanced continent, they codified the customs duties, and being the rulers in India, they introduced these enactments: Sea Customs Act, Land Customs Act, Inland Bonded Warehouse, and Aircraft Act. In the Aircraft Act, section 16 only is taken and merged into Customs Act, as it related to clearance of goods from aircrafts. Only to that extent. Otherwise, all sea customs and land customs were the main foundations and the predecessors for the Customs Act of 1962. And you remember that till 1962, India continued to operate under these enactments. Much after the independence and 1951 becoming a republic state, it continued to enact. You may now also see entire criminal procedure code and many of the evidence act and a lot of civil acts are still belong to 19th century, because if you see the enactment, it will be 1886. All such enactments are there. Like that, it continued for some time. Now it is consolidated into a Customs Act of 1962. Now, as I was telling you about customs being a duty, it is mainly used as a tariff barrier and non-tariff barriers. And you remember whenever there is a onion price increases, there will be both tariff barriers as well as non-tariff barriers. One is tariff barriers to increase the export duty with a heavy percentage, like you impose not on a percentage basis, because if you cannot impose 100%, even if you impose 100%, export will be more beneficial, because international price for an onion is much more lucrative than the local prices. Therefore, people used to export. Therefore, what they will do, they will put a non-tariff barrier of restriction. They will put the onion in the prohibited goods list. It's not a free. You have to apply for a license from DGFT. Once you get a license from DGFT, you can export the particular goods. I gave onion as an example, but these kind of restrictions are there for various ores and a lot of other spices and coffee, tea. Other tobacco products are also regulated heavily in customs. Of course, trade barriers are there, as I have been telling you. Various countries have done this. And as I was mentioning, valuation, classification and other procedural matters are same in all the countries. Therefore, if somebody comes to you that I am importing a particular goods from Singapore, what is the classification? You don't have to break your head over the classification for customs purpose. You have to simply ask what the foreign supplier has classified. The same HSN will apply to India as well. You don't have to, and also if some supplier in foreign country has classified under a particular heading, it is difficult for an Indian importer to change it, because customs will not accept, because the exporter would have already classified under that particular HSN and already sent the export manifest, which will be given by the ship here when they unload the goods. Therefore, classification will remain as per the original HSN. And coming to the international law, see, just because US has given certain has a liberal import and export policy, it is not automatic that India should also have a same liberal policy. Each country will follow that. I think now you have been reading for many months, there is a US-China trade war, which resulted in Google banning many downloads in UI mobiles, and also they banned a lot of other manufacturing sector from China. This particular trade war between US and China has a lot of benefits to India, wherein many of the European jewelry importers, they started shifting base from China to India, because there is a there is a talented workforce which can do the jewelry manufacturing in India. To that extent, it was a beneficial thing as far as US and China. However, there is also a trade war going on between US and India. You may have read number of, in fact, whenever there is an import from Apple from US, we impose heavy customs duty. When we import dry fruits and almonds, there is a heavy customs duty. In fact, Trump is complaining about Indian trade barriers, but you will be surprised to see what is Trump's main point here is he is against imposing the custom duty on Harley Davidson bikes only. Why? Because last year India had imposed 100% custom duty. That's why the costliest bike is that Harley Davidson. I think it is costing around 20-25 lakhs in India. In that, actual price will be 12.5 lakhs. Equal amount is custom duty, 25 lakhs. That's a high end. You can go for a cheaper Harley Davidson. If it is 10 lakh means 5 lakhs is the cost, 5 lakhs is the custom duty. But Indian government it's not the government, like no politician will be able to know. The particular secretary in the finance ministry is to blame. There is an article which said that India imports only 3,413 bikes last year. How much revenue will government would have? If they had reduced it to 10% and they would not have lost in crores. Unnecessarily they are keeping with after so much protest from Trump, they reduced it to 50%. I don't know. See, they are not able to send, and Trump is not worried about your across the board customs. He is worried only about Harley Davidson because there is a manufacturing unit in US which is lobbying with the president to remove trade barriers across the world, not only India. They are fighting across the world and they are fighting with India also. India could have earned brownie points if they had removed this particular customs duty. And in fact, this kind of rates bring back the memories of 1980s and 90s when India was having 80-90% customs duties. In fact, I have seen notifications of 1980s and 90s. Some majority of the goods customs rate will be 60%, 70%, 80%. At that time, in fact, government's policy was their job is to tax all the business. They are not there to encourage business, no imports. The moment somebody is going to import, tax them heavily. That's how it was the government mindset and policy at that point of time to tax at heavy rate. But that has come down. But in my opinion, government could have taken a more practical decision as far as choosing these certain goods in a trade war between India and US.
Sir, those days, see, foreign exchange reserves are very low. Possibly that was the reason why.
It's a catch-22 situation, sir. If you impose 80% custom duty, who will import?
Very few.
Only Tatas and Birlas in Mumbai were importing. Nobody can even afford to think about imports. Then when there is no imports, then there is no manufacturing. If there is no manufacturing, there is no exports. Then normally there will not be foreign exchange. That was liberalized in 90s when the Indian liberalization started. From that day onwards, India's mindset, and in fact truly it liberalized the Indian economy. You have seen the rest is history. I am not saying that is the only way, but at least we are not have become a third world country like what we used to have, a very slow rate of growth without any manufacturing. At least now we are competing on par with the world. Now coming to the constitutional backdrop. As you are aware, Article 265 is the backbone of taxation, which says no tax shall be levied without authority of law. Therefore, whenever we talk about custom duty, what is the constitutional roots? The constitutional roots for levy of customs is contained in entry 83 of 7th schedule, list 1 of 7th schedule, which read with article 246 says on all types of customs duties, both on imported goods and export goods, are to be levied by central government only. No question of state government. It is not there in the list 2, which is a state list, and it is not there in the concurrent list, which is a common list. It is only present in the list 1, which is a central government list, and under that government has enacted Customs Act 1962, which is the act now, and largely this is how the Customs Act 1962 works. The parent act is 1962 enactment, which levies customs duty under section 12 on all imported goods and exported goods. Please note, when we talk about customs, you suddenly, automatically you think about imports. But as I said, as an example of onion, there are a number of other items where export duty is also levied. How it is levied? When I say section 12 of Customs Act levies custom duty on imported goods and export goods, it says as per the Customs Tariff Act 1975. The duty will be imposed as per Customs Tariff Act 1975. Under Customs Tariff Act 1975, Schedule 1 relates to imports, Schedule 2 relates to export. Your GST enactment refers to Schedule 1. Correct? In all the notification, rate notification, whenever they refer to the classification, chapter headings, titles, etc. contained in the Customs Tariff Act, they refer to Schedule 1. Schedule 2 is only meant for exported goods. It proposes to impose an export duty. There are about only 50 line items in the Schedule 2, nothing more. Mainly coffee, tea, spice, and certain electronic items, and iron ore, certain mineral items, coal, etc. are mainly listed for levy of export duty. And in fact, the rules are there, number of rules. For valuation, there is a rule, valuation of import goods, valuation of export goods, and also there are a lot of other procedures for claiming the duty drawback. Such rules are framed under the Customs Act. There are rules for warehousing, and notifications are also issued under the Customs Act for exemption granting. And apart from, not only for exemption, there are notifications issued for notifying the custom bonded warehouse area, custom station across India, and SEZ areas. For number of enactment notifications are issued under the Customs Act. There are circulars and public notices. Now let me start with the few issues under the Customs Act. As I was mentioning, section 12 is the charging section, which imposes levy of customs duty on the goods imported and also goods exported from India. Now for this, we have to understand what is the definition of import and export. As you must have read or remember, very simple definition of export and import is given. Import means bringing the goods from outside India. Export means taking out the goods from India to outside India, to a place outside India. This is the simple. For this purpose, it's better to understand the definition of India as per Customs Act. And there is no exhaustive definition of India in Customs Act. Customs Act simply says India includes territorial waters of India. That's the inclusive definition. It simply says India includes territorial waters. That means to say Customs Act recognizes the India as it exists as a Republic of India. Then we may have to refer to Constitution, which says that Union of States with so and so boundaries, etc. And General Clauses Act also means after commencement of the all territories for the time being comprised in India. And there is another definition of India in GST. That is entirely a descriptive and exhaustive definition. Let's not take that definition. India is whatever is as per the Constitution, what is India as a republic, that plus territorial waters for customs purpose. I will just explain how the territorial waters is important. And as you are aware, territorial waters is up to 12 nautical miles from the border, from the baseline coast of, that is the land area, where the coastal area, from that baseline, if you go 12 nautical miles, that is up to that Indian territorial waters, and it's mentioned 1 nautical miles equals almost 1.853 kilometers. It's closer to almost 2 kilometers and 12 nautical miles. However, where do we get all these details? Customs Act doesn't define this 12 nautical miles or what is the length of the territorial waters, and any bay, gulf, harbor, creek, tidal water constitute territorial water. All these classification and clarifications are not applicable to India alone. Like as a country we have not decided we will declare 12 nauticals for our own purpose. It is not India alone. As I mentioned, World Customs Council also has agreed upon many things, and Customs Act only defines what is Indian customs waters. Please remember, India includes territorial waters from baseline to 12 nautical miles. Indian customs waters is another 12 nautical miles. That means 24 nautical miles is the Indian customs waters. Why it is important? Indian customs water is important because the officers have jurisdiction up to Indian customs water to administer Customs Act. Administer in the sense, even if some smuggler is running away from India, Indian customs officers can go up to 24 nautical miles and catch him. If he goes beyond 24, then Indian customs officers have no jurisdiction. That is till you get this year's finance bill passed. The moment this year's finance bill is enacted, once there is a presidential assignment, they have already proposed to delete the Indian customs water from section 104, where there is a power to arrest. There is a definition of Indian customs water. Now in the power to arrest, there was one phrase which says, within the Indian customs waters, the proper officer can arrest the person who has contravened or who has committed an offence, so and so. Now, this particular deletion which is proposed now, which will become act in few days' time, that will make the Indian customs officers to go beyond the Indian customs water, that is 24 nautical miles. Then they can arrest a person. However, as you are aware, somebody from Bangalore has run away and is sitting in UK for so many years. Is it possible for the customs to go and arrest him? Though we may amend so many things, There is one article in Indian Constitution, Article 245. In that, sub-article 2 says, Parliament cannot pass an enactment outside its jurisdiction, which is common sense. But if that particular article is not there, then the Indian Parliament can legislate anything. They can also pass a new enactment saying that all the persons who have fled India after looting, they can be arrested wherever they are. Is it possible? No, we are living in a world which is governed by World Trade Agreement. There is a World Trade Organization, WTO governs that, and you have to respect UN. You cannot bulldoze and say that I will walk into any country and arrest a person.
No, now this post this budget, probably they went is beyond the 24 nautical miles, maybe in the high sea, not in some other country.
No.
Other country is a sovereign country.
I just see this is how it looks. I was coming to that. It's a good point. High sea. See how it looks. Now you have first 12 nautical miles. Another 12 nautical miles, there is a Indian customs water, totally 24 nautical miles, which is referred as a contiguous zone. Thereafter, you have 200 nautical miles, exclusive economic zone. All these definitions are contained in one enactment called Territorial Waters, Exclusive Economic Zone and Other Maritime Zone Act 1976. And this particular enactment is passed by all the countries across the world. All members of United Nations have passed, and therefore whenever even Pakistan, which is our neighbor, has the same thing. Even they have their own exclusive economic zone. 200 kilometers from their baseline, they can explore economically. Similarly, India can explore within this 200 nautical miles. Now, the purpose of the amendment is so that you can chase the smugglers or criminals into beyond 24 nautical miles, which was not permitted till now. However, why I am discussing this from a legal point of view, that it may not hold the test of constitution. If somebody who is arrested beyond 100 nautical miles, he can always file a writ petition in the High Court saying that though Customs Act has been amended by removing the Indian Customs water from the section relating to arrest of a person, the constitutional provision is against this. Therefore, it is ultra vires the constitution. I am just discussing one issue, how this can be argued in court of law. Therefore, certain things which are beyond the constitutional provisions, government should be more careful. Whether there are decisions already which are rendered in the context of Income Tax Act, where income arising outside India. In that context, referring to the very same article 245, sub-article 2, income tax decisions are there. There are GBK Industry case and also Electronic Corporation of India case, which say that such a extraterritorial jurisdiction outside the Indian customs waters is not permissible. You cannot tax beyond your jurisdiction. There are precedent cases which go, and in my opinion, it is possible that this mere deletion of Indian customs waters from the section 104 of Customs Act will not enable the customs officer to go anywhere and arrest. Still there will be hurdles. This point I just wanted to highlight. And this is how this works. And in this context, let's go to the definition of import. Import means bringing into India from a place outside India. This is very simple. However, what we think is simple is always made complicated by various court decisions. As you are aware, like any other enactment, there are a number of decisions which say that import. Earlier there used to be a simple understanding that the moment goods enter the Indian territorial water, there is an import. But after development of trade and during 90s, number of cases were taken up to Supreme Court, and it became a Supreme Court's job to interpret when the import actually happens. Now it is almost a settled law because of Supreme Court decision in Garden Silk, which says that though the import commences the moment the goods enter the territorial waters, it will become an import only when it merges with the mass of goods in India. That means only when you present a bill of entry and clear the goods for home consumption, only on that day it becomes import. Goods or ship may have entered the territorial waters. Earlier this kind of things people were doing because there used to be a budget day announcement. If some importer of particular product has got a hint or has got some tip from the government sources that government is going to reduce the custom duty, what he will do, he will not file the bill of entry. It will cross the territorial waters, it will remain in the ship. He will ensure that once the notification reducing the custom duty is issued, he will file the bill of entry. Because the import happens only when you file the bill of entry for home consumption, for clearing the goods for home consumption. This is how it used to happen. Now it has become only an academic for us because nowadays, considering, as I told you, peak rate is now at 10%. Government is increasing certain rates. Though I mentioned initially that government has been increasing custom duties, it is not high amount. They are increasing from 10 to 15% or 10 to 17.5 or maximum 20. Even now, the rates are not very high. The government has a policy, they are selectively increasing the goods by 5% or 10%. The same thing, I have just analyzed what the Supreme Court said in the Garden Silk decision, where they said the taxable event is the day when crossing the customs barrier. In the sense, crossing the customs barrier is custom station. When you file the bill of entry, only it crosses, comes into India. And in case of goods which are warehoused, you have to file the bill of entry to clear from the warehouse. One interesting development which happened long back, where High Court had held that when the vessel carrying the goods crossed territorial water, it is an import. It was a wrong decision. I have just tracked how it happened. In 1985, it was held that the moment goods cross the territorial water, it is an import. This is much before the Garden Silk decision. Now, Supreme Court overruled the same decision in 1999 along with the Garden decision. Now it is settled once for all that crucial date for the import is when the date is determined as per section 15(1), means when you file the bill of entry, that is the date when it is termed as import. Now the imported goods. This is a follow-up definition of import. Any goods which is brought into India from a place outside but does not include which is cleared for home consumption. Now, who is importer? This has gone an interesting change. Normally, you think the person who has imported is the only person who can be termed as importer. But it is not so. Refer to the definition of importer. It is very wide. It includes not only the owner of goods, it includes a beneficial owner or any person holding himself out to be an importer. What happens if an agent imports? Goods belong to a particular owner company. That particular company has instructed an agent to import and clear the goods. At the point of filing the bill of entry, if a person holds himself to be an importer, such person will be termed as the importer.
All these courier companies, all.
No, courier is a transporting agency. Transporter is on a different footing. You know that even in the sales tax enactment, transporter is always on a different footing. He is in fact, he is not an agent. He is the person who, something like a bailey. He holds the goods and takes the responsibility of delivery to particular place. Therefore, transporter is not the correct person. If any other person who holds himself other than an owner, even such owner will be termed as an importer. They inserted the word beneficial owner in 2017. Before that, there was a decision in Sampath Raj Dugar case. Here, I will just ask you one question. What happens if the importer imports the goods? After the import, he finds that there is no quality, some deficiency. He doesn't want to clear the goods. He comes to know that that particular consignment he doesn't want to clear. He abandons it. Now the question is, who will be termed as an importer and what can be done with that particular goods which has already landed in Indian customs station? That particular dispute went up to Supreme Court in Sampath Raj Dugar case, and the foreign supplier fought this case also, and the importer who abandoned this goods also wanted to claim, saying that he wanted to sell the goods after abandoning. They said the moment an Indian importer abandons, no other person in India can be termed as an importer. Goods belong to the owner. Owner means the person who has sent this. Under the Sale of Goods Act, there is a transfer of property in goods. That means if you buy a mobile from a shop and there is a sales invoice, the contract is that the seller of mobile is selling the goods to buyer. I become the owner of mobile. What is the evidence? There is a bill, invoice, which says that he has sold the mobile to me, and whether I have paid the consideration by EMI or full payment or no payment, that is between seller and buyer. But there is a sale. Transfer of title has been transferred to the buyer. If that has happened, then the Indian importer will be the owner. But after import, though there is an invoice, the Indian buyer has abandoned it, then commercially the sale agreement has gone. There is no sale. Because there is no sale, court held that ownership goes back to the foreign supplier. Therefore, owner being the foreign supplier, he can re-export it back. It allowed the foreign supplier to take back the goods. And in another case, very interestingly, banker held the title documents for one of the import, which is common. Wherever there is an LC, the banker will have a title document, and if there is a default by the Indian importer, what happens? Bank will become the beneficial owner because it has to recover. They have financed the entire import value. Amount has already been paid to the foreign supplier by way of an LC or whatever other arrangements, and now the bank can take possession of the imported goods. To provide this particular decision, where it's a high court decision, GA point, this particular definition itself was amended in 2017 to include the term beneficial owner. Prior to 2017, this word was not there. There were only two categories of person: owner or a person holding out to be an importer. Now they have added beneficial owner. It covers many other situations, which is in a way it's a good thing. Now they can include, because considering the commercial transaction, you never know how many parties will be interested. This is one of the procedures for inward clearance. I will not go through these things in detail. Section 46 allows the procedure for clearance of goods for home consumption, and 47 also provides how it should be cleared by filing of bill of entry. Now, what I have done is, as I have discussed the import of goods, I have captured certain recent decisions in the context of duty-free shops. How our understanding of import of goods is now used in the context of duty-free shops, whether it will be subject to GST, and if yes, who has to pay. There are two decisions which I have set out. See, in this case, normally when you are coming from a foreign country, there will be duty-free shops. Earlier it used to be compulsorily you have to pay in foreign exchange. Now it has been relaxed, you can even pay in Indian rupees also. And you know, duty-free shops means what you buy normally. After arriving, you will be entitled for so many things, and people will normally carry many gifts to their friends and relatives, and also there will be specific item which many persons go, and even if you are not interested, there will be agents waiting for. You are entitled for certain duty-free things, you can carry and clear it outside. Just outside the airport you have to hand it over the same to him, because there will be a huge savings in duty. However, all those such practices are now has come to an end, because though there is no duty of customs, because of IGST Act, there is one hit now. This decision has referred to a Supreme Court decision in Hotel Ashoka case. And we have already discussed, when the import is complete, when you file the bill of entry, it should cross the customs. Duty-free shop is beyond, it's behind the customs station. Only when you bring the goods through proper customs channel, either by filing a bill of entry in case of commercial transaction. In case of baggage, it has to come in baggage rules. In both cases, it has to pass through the customs station. Only at that time it is an import. Before that, it is still behind the customs station. Therefore, now what the High Court said, this particular company, which is having a duty-free shop in Indore, actually it is an Indore-based duty-free shop in the Indore airport. It filed a writ petition in Bombay. They tried to say, because it is a custom duty is exempt, even IGST should be exempt. That's their submission. But High Court negatived that. They said that GST is required to be paid on goods brought from a domestic airport or a domestic security hold area under section 5(1) of IGST Act. Section 5, which is a levy section, says all goods imported from which cross the customs station are liable to IGST. It is termed as interstate transaction, interstate supply. The moment it is termed as interstate supply, the provisions of IGST Act will apply. Therefore, the earlier enactment of customs duty plus additional duty of customs, which was referred as, what was the earlier name for additional duty of customs? CVD. CBD and SAD. There were two. CBD equivalent to excise, SAD equivalent to VAT. Those two enactments and those two duties were following the custom duty. If there is no custom duty, no CBD also. Because that's how it worked under Customs Tariff Act. However, because of the IGST Act, now it's a peculiar situation. Though there is a custom duty exemption for duty-free shops, please remember, when you buy anything from a duty-free shop and bring it out, it will be subject to IGST.
The authority will be there, the custom counter.
Yes. And because of this decision, all the duty-free shops are now governed, are following. In fact, Customs Department has to ensure that all the goods which are purchased from duty-free shops will be subject to IGST.
No, it is only coming in now, not going out.
That is next case. Sir asked me a very relevant question. When you buy from duty-free shop, it is subject to what happens when you sell to a duty-free shop? You are a manufacturer of some goods. You are required to supply to duty-free shop, so that duty-free shop can sell goods to various passengers there. Now the question is whether my sale to duty-free shop, which is behind the custom station, can this be termed as export, zero rated? Is it possible? What is the common sense answer? It is possible. That's how they filed a writ petition. But High Court negative, saying that though you are supplying goods to duty-free shop, it is still within India. It may be beyond the custom station, but as per the IGST Act, when it becomes a zero rated, it should go out of India.
No, my question is, in an airport or wherever the customs duty-free shop is there, people going out, departure section of that duty-free shop may not charge IGST because they are going outside the country.
Yes, no.
However, when it is coming inside the country,
I'll come to that. In IGST Act, if you remember, there is a specific provision for refund of IGST for an outgoing passenger. Very relevant question here is, let us say a foreign citizen who is leaving India has purchased certain items in a duty-free shop. Thereafter, he is submitting his passport and going out of India. For them, refund of the...
No, that refund I think for the local purchase.
Even for this, I go back
No,
to...
see, after you security check only you get that, no? Then refund almost is not possible, no?
No, if you see,
Prior to check-in, only that refund is happening. That's what I saw in European countries and all. While coming now,
correct.
before check-in
Yes,
only
in-
the whatever,
in UK,
domestic market, whatever we
correct,
purchase
sir.
there.
See, one issue here, whatever is the international practice may not be relevant in India. That is number one.
No, but this refund, after check-in, you purchase in duty-free in a departure section, then I think their IGST is not there, I feel. It should not.
It should not be, but now considering the IGST provisions, I will discuss those provisions in my next slide, because one of the critical issue which I have chosen is also that how an IGST can be imposed on the imports. See, we have a very peculiar arrangement now. You must have already seen when the IGST is imposed on the imported goods and how it is imposed, you must have observed.
Import, I think that is anyhow it is.
No, I will come to that. That's why. How it is charged to tax under IGST Act, can anybody tell me? When the goods are imported, that is relevant. I will come to export.
No, I am not familiar with GST.
No, I will tell you. No, it says when the goods are imported, IGST will be imposed as per section 3(7) of Customs Tariff Act. It says, and full stop. When you go to Customs Tariff Act, it says when the goods are imported, apart from basic custom duty, government also levies an integrated tax as per IGST Act. Now, with these two provisions, we are not sure what government wants to charge. In IGST Act, they say you refer to Customs Tariff Act. In Customs Tariff Act, they refer to IGST Act. In both cases, there is in fact, that is one of the issue which is relevant to it. We will discuss at that point of time. And now coming to the second issue. Here, sale of goods to outgoing passengers are to be treated as exports. Sir, your issue is here. If you see the last paragraph, it says whether the transaction undertaken at the DFS, that is duty-free shop, sale of goods to outgoing passengers are to be treated as export of goods or services, not part of a petition and not decided. What they have done is, they have not decided in this particular case. But still, there is a confusion on that particular levy, how it works under IGST. Now let me quickly take you to some of the topics and then I will go to the issues under Customs Act along with other decisions. This is a HSN, as I told you, the customs tariff, both the Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 are based on the organized system of nomenclature which is there from many years, and across the world it was there for almost more than 150 years. The same procedure has been adopted by World Customs Council immediately after the Second World War, where all the countries agreed to have a uniform practices. Now we are following under this GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. I think if you remember, almost 15 to 20 years back, these GATT negotiations were happening. Under that, each country has to abide by the practices which is agreed upon by all countries to reduce the trade barriers. This is how India has been reducing the trade tariff barriers, and now the peak rate is 10%. Now coming to the classification, there are certain explanatory notes to HSN which can be adopted, and though it is not recognized in Customs Act, the courts have held that you can rely upon the HSN explanatory notes. If there are certain confusion between the classification of certain items, like whether a watch can be termed as clock or clock can be termed as watch, you can refer to this classification. And there are many interesting provisions in classification which are classic cases in customs. And please remember, whatever the customs classification cases are there, including Supreme Court and many high courts, will be equally applicable to your GST classification now. Because all GST rate modification directly refer to the Schedule 1 of Customs Tariff Act 1975 for all its classification, description, heading, chapter heading. See how these, before I go on to some case law, I would like to give one example how the government treats the classification which is totally a divergent view from an importer. I will give one live example. In case of a coal which is imported for generating steam in many industries like iron and steel, and also you have thermal generation plants for burning of coal and then generating the thermal electricity, and many of these coals are used for generating steam for manufacture of iron and steel and other related industries. This particular coal was classified as a steam coal. Steam coal is, there is a specific entry called steam coal under the Customs Tariff Act, subject to 5% reduced rate. There is also another entry called bituminous coal, which is subject to 10%. If this was the simple story, everybody can easily decide what is bituminous coal, what is steam coal, story ends. But that is not the end of the story, simply because steam coal is a trade name because it is used for generating steam. But what is the characteristic of steam coal? If you test that, it has all the characteristics of a bituminous coal. That means a bituminous coal is a name. There are 4 types of coals, for example, in the industry. There is an anthracite coal, which is very fine quality, which is not normally available anywhere. Bituminous coal, which is 80% of the coal generated across the world. There are other low quality coals, so 3rd and 4th. Now, one interesting issue came for classification. This bituminous coal is used by industry as a steam coal. Now you tell me how it should be classified, based on the characteristic or based on its usage.
Characteristic and usage.
Yes, see, it is like this. If you have apples and oranges, 2 are different. And within apple, if you have 2 different types of oranges, but it's an apple only. Therefore, once it is a bituminous coal, whether it is used for steam or for some other purpose, it continues to be a bituminous coal. However, you cannot deny the exemption because ultimately it is used for generating steam. I am just giving one example, and interestingly, for these 2, the chapter heading was one and the same. Chapter heading for bituminous coal as well as steam coal was one and the same. That led to a dispute running for years together. Presently, it is in Supreme Court. This is how the classification disputes go on. Let me deal some of the classification issues quickly. This is not a landmark decision in the sense it simply says explanatory notes to HSN also play an important role in interpretation, and rules of interpretation given in the customs tariff have to be adopted. Now let us see what is the general rules of interpretation which is applicable for classification, which is relevant for GST as well. I will quickly take you through these rules. It says, rule 1 says you have to go as per the description, title of section, headings, etc. This is a common sense rule. It says don't go by any other method, simply read the description of the tariff heading and apply it. However, when it is not possible for you to classify as per the description of the product, then you have to follow rule 2, 3, 4, 5. And these I will just summarize and tell you. Rule 2 says when you import certain unfinished products, you have to classify it as a finished product. In the sense, if you import a machinery in knockdown condition as a parts, it has to be classified as a finished goods. If you import, earlier it used to happen, people were importing the parts of a Sony TV and they will manufacture here, they will assemble here. Nowadays it is happening in cars. They will import all the knockdown condition of a car, it is assembled here. And though it is imported in parts and sub-assemblies, it is a car only. Similarly, and the rules provide that though it is imported in a unassembled or disassembled form, it has to be classified as a car and applicable rate has to be applied. Next, rule 3 says when it is classifiable under more than 2 headings, prefer a specific description. Don't go for the general description. When it is, you always, and also when in case of certain mixtures and other forms where the goods are mixed, then what is suggested is you determine what is the essential character. Because in certain mixtures, you have to determine what is the essential character and classify. And in case of 4, they said that if you are not able to classify as per the description available, you classify as per the similar products which are akin. And the rule 5 says it is for certain goods which are specific, like camera cases, gun cases, or guitar covers, etc. This is how it goes on. And one or two important decisions I would like to discuss here. The third one is the one which I wanted to highlight here. Supreme Court said when you classify the goods under customs, or it said don't go by the scientific or technical meaning of the goods. It is the name which the market understands is important. In the it's a Dabur India case, very interesting story. I will just tell you briefly. Here Dabur was manufacturing the gripe water, Janamguti, and it is prepared from chemicals, of course, apart from certain Ayurvedic proprietary medicines. Basically it's an acid and chemical and water is mixed and gripe water is prepared, and interestingly they were claiming it as a pharma products so that they can classify under chapter 30 and get some benefit of the reduced rate. Department wanted to classify it as a chemical because it has acid. It had got certain acid which is high percentage. There was no denial because essentially it's a chemical formulation. And the departments, they conducted the test, produced the test certificate to show the percentage of chemicals, and they wanted to classify based on the chemical characteristics. Supreme Court said nothing doing. How can you classify a product based on the scientific test and scientific characteristics? What is he selling for? He is not selling it as a chemical. Ultimately, the manufacturer is selling in the market as a gripe water. Gripe water is sold as a pharma product. In fact, in this decision, they followed the earlier decision of Vico Laboratories. There, one more interesting term was there, skin cream and dental, because it was advertised as a Ayurvedic skin cream and Ayurvedic toothpaste. They were claiming as a medical, but court said no. The test is how you sell, whether to buy the Vajradanti toothpaste or a skin cream, do you require a doctor's prescription or not? Therefore, there are contrary decisions, but still the large thing says don't go by the scientific or technical description. It says you classify as the trade understands. Therefore, even in import, the trade thing is more important. And in this context, I would like to highlight the last case, Lekhraj Jasumal case. Why it is landmark, in my opinion, is it recognizes the fact that even though there is no mention of a particular product in the tariff, the government has to recognize the technological advancement and has to classify accordingly. I have seen in my 20 years of practice, none of the tariff things have been changed. But can you say the same thing about your technology? Earlier I have seen I think in CA exam there used to be a practical problem. It's used to say, how do you classify a printer which also does the photocopy? At that time, 20 years back, a printer doing a photocopying itself is a novel idea. Now you don't require any equipment. Mobile is sufficient. Now the technology has gone to such an extent, certain cancer treatment equipments and medicines are not even mentioned in the tariff. Now the question is whether the latest technology in medical science, is it eligible for the exemption as specified in the notification, but it is not found. There is no heading for that at all, because it does 4 or 5 different activities which is mentioned in 3 different tariff headings. And even now the tariff heading in customs only refers to cellular phone. I think how many people will call it as a cellular phone now, it's anybody's guess. Already people have gone to tab and Android and iPhone and many other things, and still our tariff heading only talks about cellular phone. Classify only under that heading. And it covers from button phone stores or smartphone and any other thing. Therefore, though tariff heading is not so flexible, the classification schedule, courts have recognized that you have to consider all the technological advancement and classify based on the technology. That means if a particular machine is classifiable as printer as well as photocopier machine, you should see what is the essential characteristics. Whether the essential characteristic is a printer, then go as per the printer, not as per the photocopy. Therefore, you have to adopt the rules of interpretation to determine what is the essential characteristic of that particular equipment. Therefore, these are all the few interesting cases which I would like to discuss. And I skip this, I go to the next decision because very, very important. You must have already noted this recent decision about 6 months back, which has gone against the SSCs drastically. What it says is, you are aware there is one interpretation called in terms of taxation. Whenever there are 2 views possible, benefit of doubt should go to SSCs. That has been the thumb rule for many years. That particular interpretation has been reversed in this case only for exemption notifications. Supreme Court still says, as far as the taxability, the benefit of interpretation should always go to the assessee, but for exemption notification, the benefit should go to revenue. This is not a good decision in my opinion, in the sense when they themselves, Supreme Court itself records taxability. It says interpretation of taxing statute imposing a tax liability on assessee, burden to prove is on the assessee or is on the revenue. Therefore, in case of ambiguity, benefit should go to assessee. But for what reason they have given the benefit of interpretation to revenue is somewhat, it's not a good finding in the decision. It's a very big decision. Though they have discussed a lot of precedent case laws, and in fact they negative the earlier Supreme Court decision in some exports. In fact, some exports had given in favor of the assessee. They said that in case of a exemption notification, benefit of doubt should go to assessee. Now that has been reversed, and you may not understand the implication of this decision now. Eventually, within 6 months to 1 year, when you file the GST returns now, August 31st, 2019, now the clock for section 73, 74 will start under GST law. Demand notices, because they have to issue within the specified time from the date of filing of annual return. Adjudication and demand starts. The moment adjudication and demand starts, any benefit of notification, because you can already know that in GST the entire rate is driven by rate notifications. Whether you are eligible for 18%, 12% or 5% will be determined as per the whims and fancies of the revenue now because of Dilip Kumar decision. They say all the benefit of exemption notification is in favor of the revenue. All interpretations will be in favor of the revenue. Therefore, this particular decision is a major roadblock. I am not saying this is a bad decision, but it is going to create a lot of roadblock, and we may have to wait for any reference to a larger bench in the due course of time. Then only there will be some relief. To this extent, this is a decision which goes against the assessees directly.
But are there cases where there is ambiguity, sir, in these notifications?
Pardon, sir?
Under GST, are there instances of ambiguity under which this...
Plenty. You take services. In case of a tour operator, whether tour operator is eligible for 5% without input tax credit. On the other hand, he can also pay by taking input tax credit, he can pay 18%. Depending on the situation, department will take a favorable view. They will deny you the 5%, they will want you to pay 18%.
But there is an option for the assessee. There is no ambiguity.
But already there are circulars which say that some of the options are mandatory. I am telling you, the options are not forthcoming clearly. And in my example, I am stating in a simple manner. But if you really read through some of the notifications, as far as goods, it is largely follows the Customs Tariff Act. Therefore, majority of the issues are settled for classification and goods. But see, we have seen some of the cases. When you go for certain amusement places, like you go to amusement park, and they will give certain things on a lease basis. You may have to buy certain sports equipment. When you take certain badminton rackets or shoes, things, and you may have to pay 50 rupees. Now the question is whether taking the lease of goods is a service or goods, because under the VAT regime it was a supply of goods earlier. Taking anything, if you give CDs on rental earlier, it was subject to lease tax, not the service tax. Because it says when they used to see a difference, when you give a CD to the customer, he will take the CD for one day and give it back. Nothing needs to be done. Therefore, it is almost equal to sale for one day. But when you give a JCB machine for one day, it is not a sale. It is equal to service, because along with JCB, the operator will come. The owner of JCB is still holding rights, therefore he is giving a service. The difference is there between the leasing of goods. All these things are there. In the same disputes are imported into GST regime. This will lead to an interpretation in favor of the revenue. Now, valuation. Take you through some of the valuation provisions quickly. Under the Customs Act, Section 14 says the valuation has to be done on transaction value, and the definition of transaction value. One point I would like to highlight here is the definition of transaction value in customs has been taken on a copy-paste basis and put it in Section 15 of the CGST. And even the related person definition, what is contained in Section 15, it is also taken out of customs valuation rules. Therefore, the same condition, it should be the price at the time and date of importation, and it should be at the place and ordinary sold, and it also says it should be, there should not be any related party. Absence of special circumstances. Related party is the one of the important criteria for determining transaction value. In customs, if you go to Income Tax Act, there is something called transfer pricing. When the transfer pricing kicks in, when there is a transaction between related parties. Similarly, in customs, there is a transfer pricing mechanism by way of a separate unit called Special Valuation Branch, which comes under the Director General of Valuation under the Customs Department. Now, I think if somebody is dealing with the imports will be aware, when the bill of entry is filed from 2016 onwards, there is when somebody files a bill of entry, normally it is done by your CHA, therefore nobody knows. Freight forwarders they do the filling of the forms. There is one question, what is asked is there any relationship between you and your foreign supplier? If it is yes, it goes to a special valuation branch. What is special valuation branch? It says transaction value is not applicable. For example, let us say there is a watch company in India which has some parent company in Switzerland. Its job is to import the watches from Switzerland and sell it in, it's a fancy luxury watch. Their job is only that. The moment they file a bill of entry saying that I am importing from my 100% holding company in Switzerland, the transfer pricing mechanism called SPB will kick in. They will not allow you to clear on the normal price. Transaction value is not accepted. The moment transaction value is not accepted, there will be a separate procedure which says that they will collect all the details. They will say is there any discount, heavy discount, is there any other circumstances in favor of the Indian subsidiary. Then they will impose a loading, which is called as SPB loading. Similar to your transfer pricing mechanism where they will add back. In income tax, it's a different mechanism where the income is added back because you have a related party transaction. Here, because you are importing from a related party, they will investigate and find out how much favorable discount you are getting. See, if the same import is done by third party, 100 rupees watch is imported by third party at 80 rupees, but the Indian subsidiary is getting at 50, they will compare what is the third party import and what is the subsidiary import. The difference they will load. This is how it works. Therefore, the valuation mechanism is also very strict. However, Supreme Court has taken a liberal view. It says, don't go by the percentage of discount. Because it is normal in a wholesale or an international practice to give a huge discount. Because if you go through the international price list and the price at which the Indian dealer or Indian subsidiary imports is, there will be a 50% discount, 60% discount, which is common practice. And because they have to give that margin, so that after importing they will sell the goods at 30% discount again. Because balance, when they import the goods at 70% discount from the list price, they can sell it at 30% discount. Still the 40 rupees is their margin for the Indian subsidiary. Supreme Court has said that don't go by the percentage of interest, still you can adopt the transfer pricing. Whenever there is an SVB investigation, we have to defend this based on the many of the Supreme Court decisions. I will quickly summarize how the valuation rules work in customs. It says if there is a related party transaction or if the goods cannot be valued in the basis of the transaction value, you value depending on the identical goods. Identical goods means if you are importing an Android mobile, you have to compare it with another Android mobile of the same specification. You cannot compare. If the identical goods is not available, then you go compare the similar goods. First is identical goods. It has to be identical in all respects. If the identical goods is not available, I am giving a simple example of mobile so that it is easy to identify. But when you talk about a coal, it's very tough. It has to be tested in the lab to determine whether two different consignments of coal is identical or similar. Coal is a coal, but there will be a lot of other characteristics we have to determine. And if these two possibilities are not there, there are other deductive method and comparative method. This is for your information. And let me straight away go to one decision where, let me skip this. Wipro decision. See, normally one point through this decision I would like to tell you one which you may have heard. There is something called CIF value when you import. For customs purpose, CIF is already fixed. And what is the freight percentage? Anybody aware?
20%.
20%, correct. And insurance? 1.1. This particular percentages is prescribed in Rule 9 of valuation. This particular issue went up to Supreme Court, and see, one interesting case, though it's a Wipro Limited of Karnataka only, which went up to Supreme Court. You may laugh at the amount. The amount involved is only some 15,240. But now we see this a small amount. But you see, the valuation in 1993 is done. Then the case must have been booked some 1988. Investigation, import will be 1998. The dispute started in 1993, and it was decided by Supreme Court in 2015. I think I think you may be aware, by the time it comes to Supreme Court, one generation would have.
That's why he is retired. As if Banerjee is retired now.
Maybe at that time he must have been very young when it started. See, one of the arguments of Customs Department here is, when the goods were imported by Wipro here, they were paying very small amount of freight and insurance. But department said nothing doing. If your import value is 100, you pay 20, you value 20 rupees for freight, 1.125 for insurance. But Wipro said, no, my actual freight is only 8 rupees, my insurance is only 50%. Totally put together 8.5 rupees. I will only add that. When my actual value of freight and insurance is only 8 rupees 50 paise, why you are asking me to add 20 plus 1.125? This because of the wordings contained in the valuation rule, which says that, I think somebody who is aware of this import clearance knows this 20% and 1.125 is mechanically applied in the valuation. And see, nobody bothers as long as, because if the freight is also normally 20%, nobody is bothered. But in this case, Wipro had a real problem because their actual freight and insurance was very low. Supreme Court said, just because you have framed your own rules, you cannot impose it on the actual importer if the importer has actually incurred a lesser amount. And it actually said, in the decision it said, even though rules say that 20 plus 1.125, please read it down. There is an interpretation called reading down. You cannot say that government has framed some rule and therefore whether the freight is incurred or not, you cannot mandatorily impose 20%. This is a very good decision where Supreme Court said you cannot turn a blind eye to the actual cost. When the actual cost of freight and insurance is lower, please give that benefit to the importer. Don't, just because you have framed your own rules, don't apply it on a mechanical basis.
Sir, the judgment is not on freight and insurance, it is on loading and unloading.
Yes, I just gave that example. It is on the final element.
From October, I can loading and unloading the 1%.
Yes, 1% is removed.
Because
Of the, but this interpretation of reading down is important. It can be applied to many other situations.
but generally, the state and land is known, freight and insurance, we apply.
Yes,
It is not known only go for 20 or 1.1.
yes. Now, but the present rule only refer to this, as you rightly put it, only freight and insurance is there. Loading and unloading is not written. I will just briefly take you through some of the recent proposed amendments. Aadhaar authentication, which is there across the legislation. This is an interesting proposal where section 103, search and seizure. What happened is, in one of the cases where the one passenger protested for scanning of the body, and prior to this amendment, section said if you want to scan any person, you have to take him to the magistrate. Magistrate will give a permission based on the application made by the customs officer. Then he can be taken to a radiologist and he can be scanned. The enactment is there from 1962. They still refer to a radiologist, X-ray only. Now, X-ray was the word used at that time, and it continued to remain till now as X-ray and radiologist. Now, this particular amendment proposes that you don't have to take him to a magistrate. Section itself provides that if you has a reason to believe, the word important is reason to believe. If you have a reason to believe, that proper officer has a reason to believe that any person has secreted any goods within his body, then he can be taken to scanning machine, scan his body and give the report to magistrate there. I think considering that there has been a number of unique ways of importing gold, where people insert and it has been found, therefore customs wanted this amendment. This is because of one Calcutta High Court decision where, based on Article 21 of the Constitution, which says that the liberty, personal liberty, which is very important, and also which is referred in the privacy decision of Supreme Court and also referred in other decision. What it says is, Article 21, it gives the immense importance to the personal liberty of a person, and high courts respect it, where you cannot force any person to do anything without his permission or without his willingness. Now, though if the customs officer has a reason to believe that this person has something inside his body, that there are certain differences between reason to believe and reason to suspect. And in case of a police officer, please remember, in IPC, words used is reason to suspect. He can file an FIR, police officer. Customs and excise or GST officers have only a reason to believe. Reason to believe is very difficult to prove. Reason to suspect is very easy because you don't have to prove anything. I suspect. I have a reason to suspect that you are doing this. But reason to believe, for that you should have supporting documents. You should have a basis to prove that you have a reason to believe that this person has something inside his body. This particular amendment says the reason believe that the goods liable for confiscation are secreted inside his body. If you have any evidence, then in fact on a lighter note, we handled one case where the customs is so efficient now. If they catch hold of your Android phone, they will download all the WhatsApp messages which are even deleted from the server. I don't know how they have done, and they have in fact downloaded the messages relating to your seat number, in which seat number, how many gold biscuits are secreted, and who is going to retrieve. All the names are recorded, and with those information, the moment flight lands from Dubai especially, they will immediately, before the passengers are made to go out of the flight, there will be an officer of DRI investigating this. These things are happening in as far as DRI is concerned, and they are able to catch many things because of the recent purge in the gold smuggling. This gold smuggling is becoming is on a high rise because of the increasing price of the gold, and recently these incidents are happening, and now the only deputy commissioner has to say that there is no question of the only deputy, he is not required to take the permission of the magistrate which was there earlier. That is the only major difference now. I was telling you about this section 104, power to arrest. I have already dealt with this, which says that the word in India or within the Indian customs water will be omitted after an act. However, one of the drastic measures is they have included if somebody fraudulently obtains any license from DGFT, like EPCG license, advanced license, then when the instrument value exceeds 50 lakhs, you can be arrested. The importer can be arrested. Please contrast with the limits in GST Act. Are you aware what is the limit in GST Act? In GST Act, any contravention relating to tax evasion, input tax credit availment, it should cross more than 5 crores. Please contrast with the amounts here. The moment you cross 50 lakhs, you can be subjected to arrest. Please note, Customs Act had this arrest provision from the beginning. In income tax, even now you do not have the arrest provision unless it results in an offence. However, excise and service tax introduced the arrest provisions later, but customs had this arrest provisions from the beginning. Because of that, it is more stricter than other enactments. And this particular entry says it is non-bailable, but you don't have to be too much worried about this particular word non-bailable, because though Customs Act says it is non-bailable, all the offences which are committed under the Indian laws are eligible for bail. In the sense, after your arrest and putting you in the jail, bail can be granted under the provisions of IPC. Under Indian Penal Code and CRPC, there is no restriction for any person to get a bail, because under the criminal law, bail is the rule, jail is an exception. Therefore, that works in a different light. But the harassment by the officers will be there, because they will arrest a person on a Friday naturally he'll be there in the jail for next 3 days. Next week only you can move the bail application. By the time it is granted by the magistrate, it will be a week's time. Job is done. This is how it is used, the power to arrest. This is about the seizure of goods where it is not possible to take control or seize the goods physically. And this is one more drastic amendment. Provisional attachment of bank account. I think this has been copied from section 83 of GST Act, which provides for provisional attachment of the bank account. Interestingly, this provisional attachment provision was not there in Customs Act till now. Though it had the power to arrest, there was no provision for attaching the bank account. They have introduced it now, after seeing its success in GST law. In GST law, it has become a super success. In the sense, if for somebody who has filed the returns, where there is a delay, non-payment of interest, you may have observed or you must have come to your knowledge, the officers immediately issue a letter for attachment. There is some form called DRC 02 or something. They will issue a letter to the banker. It will be attached, and as and when the amount is paid, they will release it. Same mechanism they have introduced in the customs also.
They are not taking check calls, they are telling to make a DD, then only attachment is looking.
Yes. Because now GST portal requires you to make the payment in cash. See, they do not want you to adjust the electronic credit ledger. That's the reason. See, if you allow them to make the payment, normally assessees will use the ITC and make the payment. They do not want that to happen, therefore they are asking for the DD.
But this attachment, there is no amount specified.
No,
Is it our view or is it any amount?
Amount. No. But it works in simple, I just say, during any proceeding pendency, one proceeding should be pending. That means the moment you get a show cause notice, the threat of attachment will be there. And let us say your show cause notice says 1 lakh rupees demand, but your bank account has a 1 crore. Bank account is attached.
Full amount.
They will do it initially.
Okay.
But then you have to write a letter saying that demand is only 1 lakh. Then they will release, they will attach only 1 lakh, the balance will be released. You can operate the bank account subject to keeping 1 lakh minimum. I am giving a simple example of 1 lakh so that it sounds funny. But let us say if your demand is 1 crore, then your attachment will operate to the extent of 1 crore. And nowadays there is some more unique feature. All bank accounts will have this PAN-based accounting across India. Any company will have minimum 5 or 6 bank accounts across India. One in Bangalore, another in, and every bank account will be based on the same PAN number. If the attachment in one state is made, it applies to all India. It killing the operations and liquidity crunch. I think if you see the newspaper yesterday, today, one of the reason quoted by Coffee Day is that income tax attached, therefore liquidity crunch. The moment there is a attachment of bank account, it will hit your bank accounts across India on your basis of your PAN. If you have a STFC account of one company and the letter comes from a department for attachment based on the PAN, all the operations will be hit. Till you settle the matter with the department, attachment will be. In fact, it's a, if you take it to court, you can win the case. It says any proceeding pending. What is proceeding pending? There are case laws, we can fight, we can legally argue, file a writ petition and get it quashed. But by the time it happens, it will be 6 months. Who will survive 6 months without bank account?
It's only one bank or multiple banks also?
No, they will specifically take one bank, and only if the balance is not sufficient, they will attach the second bank. But they can issue the letter at a time only one. That's the practice. The rules, there are rules in each, in customs they are yet to come out with the rules, but GST there are rules for issuing the attachment letters. I quickly, I think I have 10 more minutes. I quickly tell you some of the critical issues. First issue is a jurisdiction issue of the DRI, which is very academic. I will briefly summarize and tell you. Normally, which is there in GST also, and earlier it was there in excise and service tax also. Who is your jurisdictional officer is always determined by your address. Based on your address and registration, there will be a particular commissioner. Commissioner of East, South, West, etc. Similarly, in income tax you have your own commissioners based on the address. However, there will be another jurisdiction of an investigating agency called your intelligence wing, which is there in income tax as well, and similarly there is an intelligence wing of customs called as DRI, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. What they do is, DRI has main branches in big cities, and they will operate on an all India basis. A DRI in Mumbai can issue notice to an importer in Bangalore, and similarly a DRI in Pune can issue notice to a Hyderabad importer. DRI Hyderabad can issue notice to a Delhi importer. And considering this cross-country exercise of jurisdiction, it is possible to challenge that plurality of officers. Like you will have multiple officers. One officer from an intelligence wing conducts an investigation on a Bangalore company, whereas the Commissioner of Customs Bangalore is the actual jurisdictional officer. Therefore, it is a multiple jurisdictional issue. This is one issue where it is possible to challenge this kind of multiple jurisdiction by different commissioners.
Now in e-assessment, I think they have removed that jurisdictional nursing officer.
In income tax, but it is not there in indirect taxes. Indirect taxes is largely governed by your jurisdiction, which is based on your PIN code as far as the registration. But apart from this jurisdictional officers, you have an intelligence and you call it as DGC in case of excise and service tax. Now under GST you have intelligence officers, and in case of customs it is called as DRI, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. They are ruthless and almost like they act as if they are CBI officers, and because they know there are tax evaders, they adopt all sorts of harassment, physical threat, abuse, harassment to the maximum, because they are aware they can go for arrest of a person. Therefore, they have the threat of arrest. Therefore, they will harass. And if you see, for the person who has assessed or imported goods has already filed a bill of entry, which is assessed by the Commissioner of Customs Bangalore. My point here is, if you already have a bill of entry which is under the jurisdiction of Commissioner of Customs Bangalore, how can you have an intelligence officer sitting in Pune and investigating me and issuing a show cause notice again? Correct, you can investigate, but how can you assume jurisdiction over and above my jurisdictional officer who has a rightful jurisdiction on me, and I am subject to his jurisdiction? Another officer from Pune or Patna cannot come and issue, but they are doing it because they have a notification which enables them to issue notices on all India basis. That is one. Second, which I have already dealt briefly, this is how the IGST is being levied on the imported goods. Section 3(7) of Customs Tariff Act imposes IGST on the imported goods. I told you earlier CVD SAD is gone now. Instead of that, IGST is levied in bill of entry. How it is done is they have introduced a section called 3(7), which says there is a lacuna here. It says integrated tax will be levied on the imported goods. But they have forgotten the basic drafting of a legislation. What is that is, in Customs Tariff Act 1975 or Customs Act 1962, there is no mention of a word called integrated tax. Now the question is, can you levy or impose a tax or duty which is not even defined in your act? They should have taken care. That is one. Now you come to the IGST Act. There they say, in case of import of goods, it is termed as interstate supply, and integrated tax will be levied as per Customs Tariff Act. That means they are neither imposing under IGST Act. They should have charged something under IGST Act. IGST Act abdicates its responsibility. It says, I don't know, you levy the tax under Customs Tariff Act. That means both acts are referring mutually and nobody knows where is the levy. And the Supreme Court has been consistently deciding and telling that for any tax, levy or charging section is the most important section. That is missing in IGST on imported goods, and in fact based on that there is a writ petition filed in Gujarat High Court which is pending, yet to be decided. I think once High Court pronounces this is going to be a contentious issue, government may have to bring in suitable amendments to plug the issue here. And there are certain issues in EPCG and advance authorizations which is a deemed export, and briefly I will explain. What happened is, when the GST regime came on 1st July 2017, they amended so many notifications and amendments, you are aware. It was a mega exercise across the legislation, but in that it was understandable that government forgot to amend the provisions relating to EPCG and advance authorization. What is the summary of EPCG and advance authorization is that they will give full exemption of basic custom duty and CVD earlier. When the CVD stopped on 1st July 2017, instead of that IGST came. They should have amended the respective notifications to rename the CVD and insert IGST. That was not done. It continued to say CVD. Then you leave this kind of a notification to customs officer. Customs officer, as you know, makki ka makki. They will see notification doesn't have the name IGST, therefore I will not give IGST exemption. It started from 1st July, they started levying IGST till 13th October 2017. Then government woke up, realized the mistake, amended the notification to grant the exemption from 13th October 2017. Now the question is, what happened to the period, intervening period from 1/7/2017 to 12/10/2017? Very, very important, because if you don't argue, you will be liable for payment of IGST, where in fact EPCG and advance license means it's a zero duty schemes. The purpose of schemes will be defeated. Therefore, based on these case laws, it can be argued that exemption for the intervening period is also available. And interestingly, from 13/10/2017, they also introduced some peculiar conditions in case of advance authorization, saying that you should have physical export only condition and pre-import condition. Fortunately, Ahmedabad High Court, that is Gujarat High Court, held that these amendments are not legally valid, ultra vires the foreign trade policy, and quashed these amendments. It's a good amendment. Because of paucity of time, I do not want to discuss these schemes in detail. It would suffice to say that Gujarat High Court took a favorable decision to the assessee saying that these kind of additional conditions will not survive. However, Madras High Court in Vedanta Limited took a decision in favor of the department, said that these kind of conditions will be applicable, and now the matter will go to Supreme Court, and we will have to see how, and understanding these two contrary decisions, and in January 2019 government agreed to remove these conditions for advance authorization, and it has made condition free like it was before July 2017. Before July 2017 advance authorization means it was fully exempt. They tried to impose certain conditions backdoor after realizing its futile attempt, considering there are contrary decisions, but entire scheme has been made free of any conditions from 10th January 2019. But please remember what happens to a period between 13th October 2017 to 10th January 2019. That will be a dispute which will continue for some time. I think with this I will conclude my session. If you have any
questions to the speaker?
If SPB investigation, so it will be valid. There is no period limit of 3 years, or it is permanently valid.
No, it was limit of 3 years was there.
Okay.
What they did in 2016 is they streamlined this particular procedure of 3 years order. What they have done is, now there is no question of approaching the SPB authorities once in 3 years. The order will continue forever till there is a change in the terms of the agreement.
Okay.
Let us say if you have 50% discount from your related party, if 50% continues, this order will continue.
Okay.
If the discount is increased to 60%, then you have to go and apply once again to the authorities.
Then we have to get again one more.
Yes, one more order, because your terms of the contract has been changed.
Okay.
Therefore, you have to prove yourself that increase in discount has not affected the related party transaction. Now that is the procedure. 3 years limit is not.
Change in terms and conditions.
Yes. If you change the condition in next 6 months only, you may have to approach again.
Okay.
Even though you have a order in your favor, because your conditions have changed or you have entered into a royalty agreement which has affected the transaction, you have to enter into a new proceedings.
Friends, we had a very interesting session on customs and its recent rulings. So some of the interesting facts I came to know, because I am not in the practice of direct tax. See, definition of India as per customs is India includes territorial water of India, and post this budget President assent, the Indian customs water goes beyond 24 nautical miles. It is quite interesting. And the last one he mentioned that when in benefit of doubt goes to revenue. That decision is really a risky one for the assessees. Maybe as he mentioned, post GST annual return, so many cases may come up if department may take that advantage of the Supreme Court decision. So with this, I think I really enjoyed the session and enriched from that. Hope you all enriched from this useful session of 2 hours. Please thank the speaker with a round of applause. As a token of appreciation and gratitude, let us present a memento to speaker. May I request that you, sir, please can you please come forward and do the honor. Please thank the speaker once again. Thank you, sir. Your good name?
Jayant Kumar.
Jayant Kumar. Please, thank you, sir. Friends, I thank each one of you for your active participation. Thank you very much. See you next week again on Wednesday study circle. Thank you.